Vietnam brought us the first televised war in 1955, in which the world could finally see the horrors experienced by millions across the globe. This carried over into World War II and later to America's involvement in Afghanistan and then the Russia-Ukraine conflict. As the cycle of war continues, today's focus on Israel and Palestine. Since the attacks, Israel has been causing deliberate chaos in Gaza as Palestinians have been utilizing unconventional means to fight back, and there may be no end in sight as political ties begin to come into play. When it comes to the Israel-Palestine war, there are three things to focus on. First of all, the deliberate chaos Israel is causing in Palestine, resulting in the loss of thousands of lives. Second, how Palestinians are fighting back by utilizing social media and bringing attention to their stories. And lastly, despite all this chaos being brought to light, how political ties are keeping Israel in power, as this war will seemingly never come to an end. But above all, we must first understand what is happening over on the other side of the globe. The October 7th attacks consisted of a rocket barrage and the death of 1,300 civilians, courtesy of Hamas, a Palestinian political and military movement. But since then, Israel have returned such slaughter back tenfold. According to Mohammed Baheji and Amir Hassan, authors of the article Beyond Famine and Chaos, Case of Gaza, Israel has been intentionally blocking the distribution of food, water, and other essential commodities for the 2.2 million Gaza citizens. By blocking the distribution of essential commodities, Israel is forcing Gaza citizens to remain without food, which will result in the starvation of people. Intentionally blocking distribution of food will cause famine-like conditions, which will lead to the deaths of many. Starvation is not the only thing Palestinians must worry about, though, because desperate times call for desperate measures, and there have been on-site journalists documenting civilians drinking dirty rainwater, animal food, etc. to survive, and this may very likely lead to illness, which will then lead to death. Not only that, but Israel is killing lives for no apparent reason. When the Al-Rashid humanitarian aid incident, at least 100 people died and more than 700 people were wounded on the 29th of February, 2024, when Israeli forces opened fire on the people gathered to collect food on Al-Rashid Street. The Israeli army then ran over the dead and injured bodies. So not only is the IDF dragging out the deaths of civilians via starvation and famine, but are intentionally killing them for no reason. In regards to the Al-Rashid humanitarian aid incident, there is no reason for Israeli military personnel to open fire on starving civilians gathering for food and to run over the deceased bodies. In fact, these tactics can be traced back to the Vietnam War, as the extensive use of napalm and the impact of bombings on the landscape caused significant environmental damage affecting Vietnam's agriculture and ecosystems for decades after the war. This is a cycle of sabotage that happens in most wars and conflicts. Unlike past wars, victims never got to amplify their voices. We had never seen war for what it was. But with social media, Palestinians now have the chance to show the world the truth and reflect any lies in the digital age. Civilians in Gaza are doing everything in their power to show the world the truth, unlike any war in the past, thanks to the digital age, and it is working. According to Max Boot, a military historian and a foreign policy analyst, online, what speaks powerfully is images. And that's exactly why the Washington Post found that the Free Palestine hashtag was used 39 times more than the I Stand with Israel hashtag, and 26 times more on Instagram. As Valerie Wirtz-Schaefer of the Brookings Institute says, at its core, to be able to document and share is really, really important, especially in places that journalists don't have access to because everyday civilians are living there. This is because showing suffering and outrage is more visceral than listening to press conferences and relying on third parties. Civilians showing the world for the war for what it is makes it more likely for them to gain support. There's also been a major shift in how recent generations think. TikTok is an app used primarily by Gen Z, and alongside Instagram and Twitter, has been a major platform in amplifying voices. The use of social media is also used to fight back against Israeli propaganda and lies. Such tweets by the official IDF Twitter account and the State of Israel's official Twitter account formulating lies, which has since been proven to be false. Such lies include Israeli soldiers claiming they found a document listing all the Hamas conspirators and terrorist names. The document was in fact a hospital calendar, and the names were the days of the week, such as Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. There's also much to be said about the language barrier, as the IDF has been using English in their propaganda to appeal to the Western audience. On the other hand, the phenomenon of social media support turning tides has been seen in the past. The use of social media to spread awareness was apparent during the BLM movement of 2020, following George Floyd's murder. This was shown through people using their platforms to spread awareness on the murder and racial inequality in America. It proved to be effective as well, as celebrities and lawmakers began addressing the murder as well, and it sparked a huge conversation on the state of minorities in America and their treatment. But despite the massive reactions the upgrading of Palestinian voices on social media has brought forth, it poses a question. Despite all the public social media evidence and support from the public, why don't countries such as the United States show their support to Palestine as well? This can be due to the major political ties Israel holds with major world powerhouses such as the United States. According to Nicole Neria of Vox, the U.S. has strong historical and economic ties to Israel. The U.S., which has supported the formation of a Jewish state since World War II, is Israel's top trading partner with an annual bilateral trade of nearly $50 billion in goods and services. In short, no matter how much support Palestine gets, Israel's political ties will always outweigh them. The United States has a long-standing history with Israel, and throwing that away can be detrimental. Also, according to Noria, U.S. officials have also urged Israel to take every possible precaution not to harm civilians, but Israel has been deliberately ignoring those urges as chaos reigns. And despite their utter ignorance, the United States is sending guided missile carriers and F-35 fighters, among other equipment, and Congress is likely to authorize additional aid as well. This is because refusing to support Israel would likely cause an economic collapse in our own country because, as stated prior, we are top trading partners. As Joel Benin, a professor of Middle East history at Stanford University, said, sometimes allies don't do what you want. So when it comes to political and economics, the United States government has no choice but to stay silent rather than risk their own well-being. But this poses the question, Ukraine is also a war-torn country with a large social media presence, and civilians have recorded bombings and invasions. Why doesn't the United States support Palestine the same way they support Ukraine? I used to ponder on this myself, finding the way the United States picks and chooses sides to be completely unfair in the face of terrorism and the loss of innocent lives. But it once again boils down to politics. Despite establishing quite neutral economic relations, the United States and Russia have a past filled with bad blood and tension, such as the Cold War, the Red Scare, etc. And with Russia being the main aggressor in the Russia-Ukraine war, it is only natural that the United States aids Ukraine. When it comes to Israel-Palestine, not only are Israel and the United States partners, it can be argued that Palestine are the aggressors in this situation due to the attacks by Hamas on October 7th, despite this being a long-raging conflict. Despite the October 7th attacks by Hamas being recent, the war between Israel and Palestine is the result of a decades-long conflict that is only now reaching its peak. The attacks by Hamas did not jumpstart this war, but only escalate it, as Israel has responded with violence that we have never seen before. Just as this happens in countless other wars, such as Vietnam and World War II, the loss of innocent lives is a cycle that occurs in war and that must be addressed. In order to do this, we must first bring attention to the events occurring overseas, promote the life stories of innocents, and recognize misinformation when seen. It is important to continue to support and uplift the voices of war-torn victims and hope their stories can spark change. And we must not let politics divide us in the name of greater good. The terrors happening on the other side of the globe is not a political issue, but a humanitarian issue, and human lives should never be made political. And we must all do our best to preserve these lives to prevent the ongoing massacre. Thank you for listening to my informative speech. My name is Anastasia Pakeman.